A winter gale claws at the Atlantic just off France. A liner ships black water over her bow, decks slick, rigging shrieking. Down below, pumps labor and steam dissipates. Up above, mothers clutch children and soldiers grip rails. Join us now for a voyage south that has suddenly turned into a life or death struggle to last the night, one that few shall survive. The liner is Afrique of the Compagnie des Chargeurs Réunis, a familiar hull on the Bordeaux West Africa run. On the morning of the 10th January 1920, she clears a Gironde for Dakar, her 58th voyage on this line. About 602 people are aboard. Missionaries bound for posts, officials and traders, families, and nearly 192 Senegalese soldiers travelling under orders. For the crew, it is routine work in a difficult sea that has been their workplace for years. January is a hard month, but the ship has made this passage many times. The trouble begins early. Heavy weather in the Bay of Biscay drives steep seas into the ship's path. By nightfall on the 10th, water is finding its way into the boiler spaces. Firemen shovel and shovel. The engineers nurse pressure and keep the pumps going. The captain reduces speed and signals for assistance. The sea answers with more wind. Another steamer, Ceylon, answers the call. She forces her way through the storm, a grey silhouette rising and falling in the troughs as she nears Afrique. But the seas are too wild for her to make fast a tow or to come alongside without risking both ships. Instead, she circles at distance, a watchful shadow in the gale. We know Ceylon did reach Afrique on January 11th, but accounts diverge. Some say she stayed near, others suggest she was forced to fall back by the storm. What is certain is that no tow was possible. Passengers wait in the saloons, while the ship thuds and shivers. In the lower decks, the African soldiers stay packed together, kits stacked at their feet. Missionaries keep to prayer. Stewards move with practiced calm. Orders go out, life jackets at the ready, but remain below until called. No one says the word abandon. Not yet. Dawn of the 11th brings no relief. The wind remains, the pumps hold, but water continues to creep where it should not. The wireless taps a steady plea for assistance and a position. The answer returns. Seas too heavy for a tug to reach you. Hold on, ride it out, keep your head to the waves. Afrique does exactly that, until the weather worsens again. Every hour at reduced speed brings the ship closer to the shoal-strewn waters off the Vendée coast. No harbour is near enough, no tug can live in it, and the storm shows no fatigue. What were routine miles become a margin of inches, the distance between steel and the Atlantic's hard places. Night closes the horizon, lamps swing in the saloons, children whisper questions. On the bridge, the officer of the watch marks positions between bursts of spray. A courier from engineering appears with a face like bad news. The flooding is stubborn, the strain is rising. The captain's orders are conservative. Keep the bow to the weather, protect the engines, buy time. Time is what the storm refuses to sell. By the night of the 12th, the long effort begins to fail. The engineers report that the dynamo, the ship's electrical heart, cannot be trusted to run. Lights flicker. The wireless wavers and then goes dark. Without power, the pumps falter. Without pumps, flooding grows. The ship's motion changes. A slow, helpless drift replaces the stubborn drive of screws and rudder. Some reports place Ceylon still nearby. Others suggest she had already fallen astern. The truth may be that the storm kept the ships apart. On the bridge, they study the chart and the lead. The Plateau de Rochebonne lies ahead somewhere in the black. A dangerous uplift of the seafloor. A reef system that has unmade more than one voyage. Every flare fired upward answers only with white spray and returning dark. A bellbuoy tolls somewhere to leeward, too far off to help. Stewards and petty officers marshal people for the worst. Children are wrapped in blankets. The weakest are moved closer to the ladders. The boats are swayed out and tested against the gale. They creak and swing like cradles under a giant's hand. Crewmen talk in the old language of hard nights at sea. Short words, no drama. Everyone doing exactly what they have practiced in daylight 100 times. It should be said it is a disputed detail. Several respected accounts say that around 23 crew, the vessel struck the Rochebonne lightship, a small beacon anchored out to warn mariners. Other sources, equally serious, say there was no collision, only a powerless drift that ended on the reef itself. The reef is certain. Whether there was an impact with the lightship does indeed to this day remain in dispute. Either way, the sea decides the next move. A set of combers catches the liner abeam and will not let her come back. She leans and holds, and then grinds. Somewhere below, plating complains with a long, exhausted sound. The deck crowd tightens as spray sweeps the rail. Officers shout the same two orders over and over. Keep together, hold fast. Minutes lengthen. A soldier takes off his greatcoat and ties it around a child whose teeth will not stop chattering. A missionary murmurs a prayer in a language learned for distant posts and never meant to be said here. A quartermaster, soaked to the skin, checks the lashings for the third time and forces his hands to stop shaking so he can tie a cleaner knot. Just after midnight, the boats go to the falls. It is like trying to lower China into a mill race. A boat kisses the water and is flung beneath the davits. Another slaps full and throws men out in a single heave. The sea batters the ship with the discipline of a hammer. The escorting Ceylon and other ships try to close. They cannot. Each time they edge nearer, the combers drive them off and they vanish behind veils of spray. Rockets describe useless cursive in the sky. From Afrique's slanting deck, they look both close and impossibly far. Salvation that the sea will not permit. Water begins to win inside as well. The bulkheads have taken too much for too long. The pumps that still live cannot keep up. Compartments that were noisy a few hours before now sound different. Fewer voices, more water, a new hollow to the ship's heartbeat. The officers' faces settle into the particular calm of people who have run out the last of the options. At about 3 in the morning on 13th January, Afrique is finished. The hull has taken more than steel can take. Hours of pounding on the hard of Rochebonne, or the sea just beyond it. The liner lists, gasps, and gives a final lurch forward, bow plunging, stern rising. A pair lifeboats drift into the blackness. Most aboard never escape. On the water, the cries come fewer and farther apart, until even the wind has nothing to carry. Day finally lifts the horizon. The storm slackens, and other vessels search the waters. Nothing remains of Afrique but fragments. The wreckage stipples the swells, gratings, hatch covers, oars, planks from smashed boats, a minister's valise that has come open and spilled its papers like white birds. On the horizon, Ceylon finds 2 lifeboats. battered, half-swamped, carrying shy of 36 souls. These were the only survivors. All others aboard Afrique were lost. Searchers pull the living aboard with hands that can barely feel from cold. Almost no passengers are among the survivors. Only one. The rest are crew and soldiers. The count that follows will settle on 34 lives preserved and a mortality measured in hundreds. Serious sources reckon the dead in the mid-500s to the high 500s. The numbers vary. The loss does not. The disaster was one of France's worst peacetime maritime losses, yet it was quickly overshadowed. France is busy with other reckonings. It is barely 2 years since the armistice. The country is choosing a president. Newsprint carries dispatches about the Afrique, but the story soon slips down the column. The colonial context matters too. The men of the Senegalese units and the African civilians below deck do not command the same attention as front-page politics. There will be memorials and names read in halls and chapels, and plaques affixed. Yet the event never quite takes its place in the great ledger of national memory. In the homes left behind, the aftermath is exact. A missionary station in West Africa waits for people who will never arrive. A barracks in Senegal has beds that stay empty. A family in Bordeaux clears a room that has not been touched since the morning of the 10th and keeps it that way through spring and then summer and then the autumn after. On the seafloor off Rochebonne, a silence closes over steel. The West Africa route will go on. Ships will keep the line. But for those families, 1920 begins with an absence that will not heal. For their loved ones share the same melancholy epitaph for all eternity. The sea is my grave. My grave is the sea. The silence of history has nearly swallowed this tragedy. But if sea disasters like this matter to you, stories nearly erased by larger headlines and the passage of time, stay with us. Please like, subscribe, share, and add what you know in the comments as we continue to bring you these harrowing tales of the sea.